Hello, we're Board Game Opinions. My name is Jonathan Hicks.
My name's Mark Windle.
I'm Steve Rain.
And I'm Matt Pritchard.
And we're talking about the Kennerspiel Des Jahres nominees, which have recently been announced. And it's mid-July, I think, is it, when the winner is finally picked?
I think they released the Kennerspiel the week beforehand or something like that, and then the Kinderspiel slightly before that.
Okay, yeah. So 3 games have been nominated, which are the Cartographers, The Crew,
Kinks Dilemma.
And Kinks Dilemma, that's right. Those are your 3 games. So we're going to chat about each of those games. We're in lockdown, which is why we're doing this online. But we've played in one form or another most of the nominees for the Spiel and the Kennerspiel. So we're going to be chatting about those. So yes, Mark, I think you're going to start with Cartographers.
Yep. So Cartographers is a draw and write game. Essentially, if you've ever heard of Isle of Skye, which I think was a previous winner, in fact, you have 4 scoring cards, and you're going to play over 4 seasons. So I think in the first round, the first 2 are going to score. So A and B maybe, and the second round B and C, C and D, and then D and A. So you're going to have a varying scoring to go through. The draw and write is you have a map in front of you, square grid, lots of bit of terrain, some mountains, some trees, whatever stuff on there. Somebody's going to turn over the top card, and there'll be one of 5 different land types generally. So it might be town or trees or water or sand, and then you have to draw that onto your map. But you're obviously trying to draw those based on scoring the actual scoring tile. So you might need to draw maybe a large square that could be of multiple different things, or you might need to get the largest section of trees, joining 2 terrain features together. Someone that had like diagonals. There is quite a fair amount of variation in the actual scoring cards. It's good to keep it like fresh. It's not going to be the same game each time because you're going to score differently. But that's pretty much the game. There's a few other small bits and pieces here and there, but it's nice and simple, fairly easy to teach.
I really like the Karuba style where you're drawing one card off
simultaneous,
and everyone has to basically put the same piece. You sometimes get a limited choice, but very quickly the different boards, the different player boards, become very different as they've made different choices about where to place the different things.
Yeah, I often see it diverge after the first one, which isn't always the case in these sorts of games. Like, take it easy. There's a very correct way to do it. And Karuba, sometimes the first tile it's clearly going to go there. But it diverges straight away.
You're not trying to, in this, fill your entire map. You'll never get enough bits to fill it. So you're not trying to be as neat or efficient as possible. You're trying to score the actual scoring cards.
One thing it has to other games, it has interaction in the form of, it's not whoever does it first or best necessarily, but there are monsters that come out. And so when the monster tile comes out, you pass your sheet to the left or to the right, depending on which one comes out. And that person puts the monsters in the worst possible place they can think of to try and stop you completely scoring goals or to try and lose your points. Because if you don't deal with the monsters, you can lose points as the game goes on.
Yeah. There's a nice variety in the scoring tiles that you're aiming for each time, I think. So it feels like every game's quite different. It's like, oh, I'm trying to connect all the red ones this time, or I've got to make the green ones link the brown ones or whatever it is. So it doesn't feel like you're doing the same thing every time. There's enough variety with those tiles that it has longevity in it, I think.
Yeah, and the Isle of Skye style thing is really nice because you can plan ahead. You know that in round 4 in winter, you know what you're going to be scoring. So you could have a slow start to the game, but a really epic end.
Steve noticed with that the deck, because you draw from the A deck, B deck, C and D deck, so it always balances what's scoring as well. You're not going to get score loads of town, score loads of sand, score loads of water. It'll be, one will be definitely spatially related, one will be land type related. So it will always be a mix within the game as well.
And every terrain will score something.
Yeah.
So there's never going to be a useless terrain for you.
Yeah, it does a great job of being approachable. Like, families could play this very happily. You know, the card comes out, you stick it on your board somewhere. It's very straightforward. And yet for gamers, there's quite a lot to think about if you want to kind of take it to that level. So it strikes a good balance.
Yeah, it's a good nominee in the fact that I don't actually think it's a huge amount more complex than a Spiel. It's very lower end Kennerspiel.
Yeah,
I think,
and it almost bridges the gap quite well.
I think it could have gone on either award.
Yeah. Indeed. All right, the next nominee is The Crew, and I think Steve's going to talk about that.
Yeah, The Crew is a cooperative trick-taking game, so I'm not going to explain whist to your chumps. If you know whist or trumps or bridge or anything like that, you're playing tricks, but it's simulated in kind of like a space theme. The theme's pretty loose, but if you have the book as you're going through, you're aiming to do missions, and each mission, you get a certain number or type of tasks to do. For example, the very first mission, there is one task. You flip over one of the task tiles, it might say 8 green, and that means that the commander, the person going first, has to win the trick with the 8 green in it. The rest of the hand is completely irrelevant, and it's cooperative. So you're all trying to enable a commander to win the 8 green. If they've got the 8 green, brilliant. If they've got the 9 green, even better. But if they haven't, how do you go about doing it so they complete it? That seems fine, but later on, you'll get 5 tasks. And 2 of those tasks need to be won before the other 3 in a specific order. Oh my God, it's my turn to pick. I've got a choice of 3 tasks. I can't do any of them. Oh my God, it becomes much more difficult. Now it's probably the nominee that we've played the most collectively. And we're only on mission like 32 out of 50. And that's with one group, because every time you can introduce a new person to it, you have to start way back down, because there is a steep learning curve to this game, but at heart, it's a cooperative trick-taking game with trumps, and you're trying to succeed each mission and move on to the next one.
I love it. Steve's tried to teach me bridge, and it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, I like the game, and I can see it is a fantastic game, but it's very hard to get into. And this, I think, straddles the gap really well. If you want to kind of introduce someone to a more complicated trick-taking game that's not quite at the level of bridge, but gives you much more to think about than just basic whist, for example, it does a fantastic job. But the icing on the cake for me is the cooperative nature of it. Trying to plan together how to win those tricks is just so satisfying.
With limited communication.
Yeah, the communication thing is trying to decide when to communicate and how much to communicate is really, really tough.
So just to explain the communication, at one point, not on every mission, because some missions hinder your communication, but at one point in every mission, you can reveal a card from your hand, not play it, but put it face up in front of you, as long as it's not in the middle of a trick. And that card is either going to be the highest, the lowest, or the only one of that particular suit. So you can't communicate every card in your hand, but you can definitely tell someone you've got a 1 or a 9, or that this 6 is your only blue card or something like that, which might enable people to work out where to go, especially in a 3-player game. If I tell Jonathan and Matt, this is my only blue card, they each know the exact blue cards the other one has, because all the cards are in play. But the best part about the communication is you're trying to tell the other people whether it's safe or not safe to play certain suits. So if I need to win the 7 green, and if I reveal that the 5 green's my highest green card, well, by playing green, I can't win the 7 green. So you need to find some other way for me to win a trick with 7 green on. The communication is just absolutely fantastic.
It's really it's quite I think a difficult game, because the group we've been playing it with, we've got Steve, who's a bridge master, and the rest of us are quite adept at Hanabi, which is another cooperative game with limited communication. And yeah, we're getting to the point where we're having difficulty with some missions. I think we're going to get through them all, but it's
eventually.
Okay. Doubt on some faces there, but yeah, it's got a good level of difficulty. I think it's going to keep the challenges coming.
Personally, I think the mission system's great, because if you can get over the initial teaching what a trump is, which nobody knows, as Steve has found out flicking the cafe. But if you get over the basic, as in the basic, your first things you learn when playing card games when you're a kid, if you've got that under your belt, you are starting from a very, very easy base, and then it just adds them one at a time. And if you're playing with the same group, you start here, and this group could be like gamers like us, but you could be just like a family group, like 10, 11, 12-year-old kids. Start at the basic level, because it's only adding a little morsel on every time of extra complexity. As long as you go through together, you'll get there you're going to struggle on the complex missions, but you're not going to struggle because you don't understand the game. You're going to struggle because the game is hard.
The way that the difficulty ramps up they've done really, really well. Like it is, I think to start with, it is pretty easy, but it gradually, as Mark says, gets harder and harder. And they introduce some really interesting twists as you go through. So there's one round where I think everyone has to win a trick with a 1.
You need to win 2 tricks with 1s.
2 tricks with 1s. Okay. And at first you're like, well, hang on, 1's the lowest card in the suit. How can I possibly win a trick with a 1? It's the lowest one. And after you play a bit and you try some various things and you experiment, and it's like, maybe if I get all the other cards played first, when I play the 1, if there were no other green cards left, then that 1 would win the trick. So it's very good at getting you to think about how trick-taking games work and the kind of things you can do that aren't immediately obvious. But as Mark says, it just gradually increases the difficulty bit by bit, and it does it so well.
Yeah. It's not really punishing when you fail. So
the reset up's really quick.
Yeah, it doesn't go, "Hi, you failed. Back to number 1 with you." You can play whatever difficulty level you want.
I would hate that if that. We've got to mission 32 or whatever. Right, every time we get to the mission we fail, we just keep at it. So yeah,
it's better than the mind, which is a simmering that sort of level of different things, because in that you do have to reset to the start. Okay, it's a lot shorter game over the old length, but it's still. The mind, you can still be going out for 30 minutes and fail. Well, this, you're going out for 5 minutes and fail.
All right. And the final game then is the Kinks Dilemma. And Matt is going to talk about that.
Yeah, so that's one that I have been playing in real life before lockdown started. So we're stuck roughly halfway through our campaign and everyone's waiting for us to resume. And it's kind of an interesting game. It's a legacy game. And the core mechanic is a very simple kind of voting round. And normally I would hate that kind of thing. I don't like diplomacy. So basically there's a deck of dilemmas that the king has, and all of the players are members of the council. And so you draw a dilemma and you say, okay, so this has happened. Do we either open the gates and let the raiders in, or do we send the army out to fight them, or something like that? And you vote yes, no, or you abstain. You can also bribe people. So I might go, well, I want to abstain, because when you abstain, you get power from the middle, so you can vote more next time. But I do want to have a yes vote, so I'm going to abstain, but I'm going to offer people money to vote the way I want them to vote. And so there's all that kind of diplomacy stuff going on. And it's got quite a nice thing that whoever's put the most influence into a vote becomes the leader of the vote. When the voting comes back round to the leader, that's how it ends. So if you keep voting more than someone else, the voting will keep going around. But if someone votes 5 and then everyone else just votes 1, there'll just be 1 round and then it'll be over. And the leader is the one, because it's a legacy game, if there's a sticker to place or a card comes out, the leader signs that sticker. So if I vote 5 for no, I definitely don't want this thing to happen. And then the next person votes 4 for yes. And then someone else votes 2 for yes. Well, that's 6 for yes against my 5 for no. But I'm still the leader because no one's put more influence in than me. And then if it continues around to me, the voting ends. I've lost the vote, but I'm still the leader of the council. So a sticker gets placed. I have to sign it. And it might be a good sticker. It might be a bad sticker. We've got a number of times that we've forced someone to sign a sticker they really didn't want to sign. And that gives you a consequence that you live with. So in game terms, it gives you usually kind of a way to score victory points, or a way that you'll lose victory points.
Each person has their own secret goal.
Yes, so you've got your own screen, and there's 4 or 5 kind of long-term goals that your screen gives you over the game. So you might want to assassinate the king, or you might want to, I don't know, annex another.
You might want the treasury to earn a lot of money, or you might want to support the poor, and so there is different scales, aren't there? Different tracks
so
that you're trying to influence.
5 tokens that move up and down tracks. So there's the prosperity of the wealth of the kingdom. There's how happy the people are. There's the strength of your army, and some other things. Food. And
generally, everyone has, within some of them, they want it to be high or low, so the votes are often indicated in their personal vested interests. So I don't really care about the kingdom. I want to starve the people, or I want to rinse them out of their money. And you're trying to convince other people to back your idea, because then you'll back theirs, and you'll personally do well that particular round.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got your long-term goals that are on your screen that are going to be the same throughout the whole campaign. And they will be things like, I want our wealth to be the highest thing, or just in the top half, or things like that. But then at the beginning of each game, you draft a kind of secret agenda. So it's like each game you are the next generation, and you've inherited your seat. And so your father maybe was a money hungry, greedy person, and he wanted just the wealth to be high, whereas you're a bit more conniving, and you want the disparity between the lowest and highest things to be as much as possible. And so you've always got a different goal, and sometimes you might get stuck with a goal that doesn't gel with your long-term goals. So you've got to decide, well, do I want to score points this game, or do I want to progress my long-term goals? Because if you get those long-term goals, they give you bonuses at the beginning of each game.
Seems like an odd choice for the Kennerspiel to me, because like in terms of the basic mechanics, essentially you just have the tracks that move up and down, don't you? And it's a negotiation game. There's not a lot of meat to the game in that sense, but obviously the legacy element and the moral dilemmas it keeps presenting you with, I guess, provide the interest.
Yeah, it's very much about the story that you're producing. So, like I say, I don't like diplomacy games generally, but I like legacy games. I like developing a story with people. And I think you need the right group for the game. We've got a really good group. We are sarcastic and mean to each other, and I think that fits the game, but in a friendly way. So we will. So Kareem is in our group, and he quite often will kind of vote in a way in game that is kind of in line with his personal out of game values, and then we will force him to sign the sticker that he didn't want for that for fun. Quite often we'll do things like that, and then kind of go, oh, actually, that's completely opposite to what I actually want in game terms, but it was funny, so I did it. And that's what we're enjoying about the game. It's also got an interesting thing that at the end of each game, when you've scored your points, you gain crave or prestige, I think they call it. So kind of white crowns or black crowns, and those are to do with the end games, the end campaign score. But it doesn't say exactly how that's going to work. And I have literally no idea who's winning. I know Kareem has got by far the most white crowns, but is he winning the campaign? I don't know. And there's 6 or so different kind of storylines. So different decks of cards will come out, and those are different storylines. You shuffle them all into the deck that you're drawing from, and eventually you'll get to the end of a storyline. And we've ended 2 of them now, I think, and they have like a symbol on them, which I think basically tells you, okay, this story gives points to people who've got crave, or this story gives points to people who've got the prestige white crowns.
And that's based on how you've interacted with the story as the game's gone on.
Yeah.
So if you're harsh to the peasants, harsh to the peasants, harsh to the peasants, or whatever, and then that story finishes, they might say whoever was the least harsh, whoever's got the most positive points or negative points. But if you'd have done something different, it would reward you differently.
Yeah, so I think one of the ones that we ended with a wedding between our princess and someone's prince or something like that. And maybe the other ending would have been we go to war with them. And that would be the other way around. So
it seems
yeah,
like the kind of game that if you like, I think you need to know what you're getting in for. Okay, not everyone is going to like this game. I personally don't think it's not my cup of tea.
As I read it, I actually thought it was Mark's cup of tea.
Yeah, this is exactly my sort of game I'd love to play. But a legacy negotiation game sounds great. But that's.
I've heard good things. Everyone I know personally who's played it has liked it.
Yeah. It does not sound like a good Kennerspiel nominee though. It just does not sit in the whole. I mean, it's not the spiel where it has to be for everybody, but it's still meant to be a gamer's game that most gamers will like. And I could see a lot of gamers going, "This really isn't my thing."
I think
in my experience, there's a lot of people who specifically don't like negotiation games.
Yeah.
And they are I won't play negotiation games. I don't like it because it's not fair. You can get done in by somebody else's decision or something like that.
Yeah.
You can't.
I'm one of those people. Generally, Cosmic Encounter, I would go, no thanks. I love Cosmic. Yeah,
I do.
So I don't like that kind of game, but I'm really enjoying Kinks Dilemma. So it's kind of weird in that way.
It feels like with the Kennerspiel nominations, often they'll try and pick one game that does something very original. So even if it's not necessarily the best strategic game, they're kind of nominating it to kind of highlight the originality in the game. And it feels like they've done something quite different with this.
Yeah.
You can't test it out and then pass it on if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem with the legacy game. So if everyone wants, because I know there's a lot of people who try and play every Kennerspiel or every Spiel every year. I need to try this, and I'm one of those sorts of people. I just don't see myself spending the amount of money on this game, it being not really a fundamental mechanic I like, because I can't even pass it on. I can't even put it in the cafe library because it's a legacy game.
All right, so we're going to have 2 votes, if you like. We're going to vote for the game that we like the most personally, and then the game we think is most likely to win. Yep. So the one that we think ought to win, I suppose, and the one thing that actually is going to win. If we start the one just with our favourite game, like the one we think ought to win, I suppose. First of all, Mark, what do you think?
I think my favourite one's The Crew by a reasonable margin.
Steve?
The Crew by an absolute mile.
Matt?
I do actually think The Crew is the one that's probably going to win it. If I was putting money on it.
But which one
is your favourite?
Yeah, which your preferred?
Oh, my favourite?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's between The Crew and Kinks Dilemma for my favourite. Obviously, Kinks Dilemma, the issue with that is I can only really play it with the 5
people. Yeah.
The 5 people I'm playing with. Whereas The Crew, I could play with you guys, or tomorrow I could play with some other people. So yeah, they've got that very different thing. I think I would say I'm enjoying Kinks Dilemma more than The Crew.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely The Crew for me. Again, I think like Steve, by a mile. It's just such a good game. You need to like that kind of heavy trick-taking game where a lot of thought goes into it. But it's just so good. It does it so well. So those are what we like. But what do we think is actually going to win this year? Although our track record and predicting the winners is never great. But
mine's pretty good, actually.
Better recently.
I
got last year's right. I got both last year's right.
All right. What do you think, Mark? What's going to win?
I think it'll be The Crew. But I didn't think the year that Isle of Skye won that it was going to be Isle of Skye, and that one, and that has some very similar things to Cartographer. Yeah. I don't think it's got a chance of being Kinks Dilemma. But I mean, I'm like 60-40. It'll be The Crew.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is close. I think it's going to be the crew over Cartographers. I'm like Mark here. If Cartographers wins, I will be surprised but not shocked. But if Kinks Dilemma wins, I will be thoroughly shocked.
Yeah. And Matt?
Yeah, again, I think the crew's going to win it if I had put money on it. I wouldn't be surprised if either of the other two win. I don't actually know what the process is for how these things get
no one does.
Chosen. Some people have a chat.
Well, there's a panel that
come on,
vote on it.
They leave a room.
Okay, so I think Kinks Dilemma is going to be very dependent on the group you play it with. So, yeah, that really is going to depend on the panel. But I think the crew's got the strongest chance.
If Pandemic Legacy didn't win it,
that's true.
Kinks Dilemma.
Yeah. I think, I agree. The Kinks Dilemma is definitely not going to win.
Yeah,
he says.
Oh God, Jonathan said definitely not. It's going to win. Forgets these right.
I think the crew's going to win as well. It's so strong. But as Mark says, because of the makeup of the panel that picks it, I could see them picking Cartographers. But they really ought to pick the crew. As
a cafe owner, I was glad that Isle of Skye won. It's the sort of game that if someone comes into my cafe and you want to introduce them to board games, Isle of Skye is a much better introduction than Pandemic Legacy. The same thing, Cartographers is possibly an even better introduction than the crew or Kinks Dilemma to someone who is in gaming. Now, I know it's the Gamers Game of the Year, but still, I want to try a Game of the Year. Cartographers is probably what I'd pick off the shelf if I had to pick for someone I didn't really know.
Yeah.
But for that, I could see Cartographers winning for that point of view. A bit like I'm really glad Wingspan won last year, even though it wasn't my favorite of the lot. It's the game that I want to show to people who aren't heavy gamers that this is what modern board games is about. Even though I actually thought was it Chronicles of Crime was a better game.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think I'm 55-45 now. Steve's talking me around. I genuinely think it could be Cartographers actually thinking about it now. Because I think you're right. If you were to put it in front of how they choose, it's going back to that, it bridging the spiel to the Kennerspiel. Yeah. Being a light spiel rather than they often pick that one.
Yeah.
It was Quaxter Quedlinburg that won last year, wasn't it? And it was.
I think I'm not surprised that won because I think you guys did not like that when we played it.
I picked that though to win because I said it won't be the other ones.
I picked it to win as well.
Yeah, I really like Quax. That was my favorite of the ones.
Yeah, and I'm glad it did win again from the same point of view that I've taught that game to people walking in thinking I want to try something else. I like Dominion. What else have you got? I'm like, we'll try Quax.
It's been really popular as well.
Yeah.
So all right, there we go.
From that point of view.
The Kennerspiel, as we say, they will be voting and announcing the winner in mid-July. What do you think is going to win? Do let us know down below if you've played any of them, what your favourites are, and which one you think is going to be the pick of the lot. Right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.